Hey folks, I'm here with Luke Sipka, who is now one of the Make Music Your Life coaches who helps me coach people in the Leap program and on the Leap community, the Slack community. But he started out, well, maybe not started out life, but started out with me as, well, did loads of cool. In fact, why don't you introduce yourself and say how you came to become a Make Music Your Life coach, because we're going to run a coaching session. I'm going to coach Luke through the end of the process and specifically use the principles of the automatic music machine system to help him figure out what to do, how to optimize, particularly kind of the mixing and stuff like that. But before we get to that, why don't you introduce yourself and let people know how you came to be sitting here now?
Yeah, so let's see. I started with Start Now, Finish Fast back in probably either 2013, 14, or 12, one of those years. And that was like a real, breakthrough course. I took courses I think I took most of your courses for the next few years. And then started working with you in the mastermind, and all the while I had my own music project and was, putting out music, doing some touring. And then a few months ago, we joined forces, I guess you could say.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Now we're I'm sort of training you up as a coach, and also you are doing a great job at helping people, because I think you're one of the people, having been in the mastermind groups, and if you're unfamiliar what the mastermind is, it's small groups of people where I talk to them every 2 weeks. We do kind of personal coaching sessions, little coaching sessions every 2 weeks, and we set goals. And I don't know, you were probably in that for over a year, weren't you?
Like a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah. So you're probably one of the most familiar with kind of how we do things around here. But during all this time, you've obviously been making a lot of music. So you make music as Bells and Robes with somebody else.
With
with
Dean. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're also thinking about, well, you're not thinking, you are actually making your own music, solo stuff as well. Okay. So,
just kind of dabbling into this. Yeah.
Great. So what is the biggest, what's the thing that you really want to talk about today? What's your goal with this coaching session we're going to do?
I think getting a little bit of clarity on the the phase after the drafting phase between done and release, and how to optimize that. It kind of feels like in my progress through the machine, I really hammered in on the splurging, then kind of started to figure out the discovering, and then really focused on drafting and thinking about that. And then now I'm just trying to think about this a little bit more and how I can customize it for my own process, if you will, the done phase.
Yeah. So have you got
especially
you go on?
Yeah, I was going to say especially the mixing phase.
Okay, cool. So have you got your automatic music machine there that you can just share the screen so we can just have a look at it?
Let's see. Oh.
So while Luke is getting up that, essentially the automatic music machine is a system where we we make lots of music at the same time. So the benefit of the automatic, well, one of the benefits of the automatic music machine is that you can be working on multiple pieces of music, not exactly at the same time. Obviously you don't do sessions with 5 tunes, but in the same period of time you can be working on 20 tunes at the same time and still be finishing them. And one of the reasons for that, not the only reason, because the system isn't the tracking system, because we use Trello to track this music and what's happening with this music. And what Luke is getting up now, if you can find it.
So I can't share the screen. Oh, there we go. I can share just Trello. Okay.
There we go. Is Trello. Yeah. So Trello isn't the automatic music machine. It's just how we track the automatic music machine. So essentially here you can see we've got different columns. So we've got sketchbook, splurge, discover, draft, done, and release. And also released, but that doesn't really. So essentially we're going to be focusing on getting things from done into release. And essentially what release means is that it is ready to release. So, depending on how you finish music, because some people use mixing engineers, some people use mastering engineers, some people do the mixing and mastering themselves, some people just do the mastering themselves, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is one of the benefits of the automatic music machine, is in that it's genre and specific process agnostic. You don't, there's no, we've got classical musicians classical composers who use musicians to actually record their music, all the way through to EDM artists who are mixing and mastering all their own stuff, and everything in between. And so, Luke, in terms of, is all of this music in done, first of all, is all of this music in done for Bells and Robes, or is some of it your own solo project?
So both. And so what I've done, this one is definitely Bells and Robes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had these other 4 that were Bells and Robes in done.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sent those to Dean, and basically we kind of are just taking it one at a time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then this one is the potential solo. This one's potential solo. And then this one is potential solo. And then there's a few that are kind of undecided.
Okay. So, first of all, would it benefit you more, because I don't think we're going to have time to do both, but would it benefit you more in this coaching session to focus on how you're finishing solo music or how you're finishing Bells and Robes music with Dean?
Well, I think if we did the solo, it would kind of come into, I think it would benefit the Bells and Robes thing, because I think there kind of comes a point with the Bells and Robes where it gets to the done phase.
And do you do the mixing? I mean, do you do the done phase of the Bells and Robes stuff, or is it still in collaboration? Is there somebody, how does it work with Dean in terms of how you collaborate?
It can vary. Sometimes we'll start something together. Sometimes I'll get something to like a draft phase and then send it to him. Sometimes I'll get something to more of a done phase,
Mm-hmm.
And send it to him. And then he'll make some changes, and then we'll get together and then and just kind of make the final decisions on things. And then we'll typically do a mix down session.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a few hours, where I'm typically mixing it, but he's here.
Mm-hmm. And just out of interest, and this isn't really a coaching question, this is more of a curiosity question. So Dean, does Dean use the automatic music machine as well? Because I don't or how does that work? Because he's not as he's not knee deep in Mike Monday world. so I mean, I know he's done some stuff with me, some courses in the past. But does he use the automatic music machine system as well, or is he? Are you using your automatic music machine and it kind of comes in and out? Because I know there are a lot of people who collaborate with other people who aren't using the automatic music machine, and they are, and sometimes they have that question.
It's kind of so yes, he's not using it like I'm using it, but he did the monthly thing.
Oh, the mission make music your life, yeah.
So he's familiar with splurging,
Mm-hmm.
and the process of going back and
Cool.
Yeah. But he's not I don't think he has his own machine. I've kind of made one that's I've made a Trello board that's a Bells and Robes Trello board.
Cool.
But we tend to just kind of just talk about it because we live in the same house.
Yeah, okay. So in other words, the music is kind of coming out of your machine and then coming back into your machine wherever it needs to be when you're working with Dean.
That's what it's seeming to be like.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of like once it gets to like right here, it just kind of exits my machine.
Yes.
Forever.
Okay. Cool.
And I guess I'm considering about like having it come back in, and maybe breaking up the mix down into multiple sessions. I haven't tried that really before. Just because I think one of the things that kind of slows me down, I think, is the fact that, like, to do a mix, if you do it like start to finish, mix prep and everything, transfer, or like, getting it ready, it could take a few hours. So I'm like, okay, I got to block off like a few hours. But what I'm wondering is maybe if I could, because like right now what I typically do is I have my like daily music making sessions, and those vary in time, but I'm wondering if I could, do like the volume leveling, because the way I mix is like I'll do volume editing, then I'll do like any compression, then I'll do like EQing and distortion, and then after, basically I have like a very defined series of steps. So I'm wondering if I could like, do just a volume session, or if like the mix frame of mind, you know how you get like a flow when you're mixing, like, and I haven't broken that up yet.
Okay, so let's just back up a few steps. So we're gonna be focusing on your music. Also, do I have access to your machine in Trello?
Yes.
I do. Let me just. I do. There we go. Okay, so what is, the first thing I kind of want to find out from you is what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
The problem that I'm trying to solve is that I sometimes get these like backups in the like almost done phase, and I'm trying to solve the problem of having that happen less often. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So when you, well, I don't know. Yeah. So this is your obstacle. So I don't know if that sounds right. So, but let me just get a bit of clarity. When you say you have backups, so there's a bottleneck somewhere in your process.
I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on.
So what is the bit that's frustrating? What is the part that's frustrating about this?
The part about it that's frustrating about this. So I think it's that I feel like I could be finishing more and getting more going, but there's like a slowdown towards the end of the process. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not like a big slowdown.
Yeah, no,
it's
but yeah. So you're wondering if there's a way of kind of making it go faster using the principles of the automatic music machine.
Yes.
I think there is a natural slowdown at the end of a process because we're in kind of full improvement mode, and improvement takes longer than just creation. So the start of the creative process is the divergent phase of the process where we're kind of accepting everything, and the end of the process is the convergent phase where we're removing what is not required, and that just does take longer. And I mean, I guess I'm known for the kind of just let it all hang out, but the automatic music machine is absolutely about finishing music and about kind of finding ways of, or the principles are about actually helping you at the end of the process, almost more than the start, because it's actually quite easy at the start to let go relative to the end of the process. So specifically, so if you were to describe for me, when is that bottleneck at its narrowest? Like at what stage does it start to get really sticky?
I think it's when like I have like a bunch of stuff that's like um, that's like good, and I'm just kind of like, okay, should I send this to Dean? Um, is this something I want to release? Uh, is this like a good release for like the bells and robes? If I send this, am I gonna want to then, meet up and like try to convince someone like, yeah, we should release this. And then let me think, when else is it the stickiest? I guess when it gets to the phase where I'm like, it's about to need to be mixed, and then I've got to like, pick a time to mix it. Um, and if it's like a collaborative project, it's like, then we have to both make sure that we're happy with it. Um,
Okay. So everything that you just said, and let me just clarify what you said. You said, I think it comes when I need to decide where it's going, what it is, who it's for, and when I'm going to meet with them to work with them or talk about it. Yeah.
mhm.
So what is the similarity between those? I mean, you may have said other things as well. That was what I remembered. I mean, first of all, is that a fair reflection of what you said?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So what is the similarity between those four things?
I think it's the external kind of,
So
it's all focused on others.
yeah. So it's about other people needing to come in. That's one thing. What's the other similarity?
I
In
don't
fact,
know.
one of them, thinking about it, wasn't about other people. That was actually, that was actually not required. Other people are not required. What was that?
Deciding if I want to release it.
Yeah. So it was you deciding what this is
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
whose it is.
deciding what it is. Mm-hmm.
So actually, all of them were decisions, unmade decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saved time there by telling you what I noticed.
Yeah, no, I needed it's like,
It's okay. Yeah. So there's a bunch of unmade decisions there. So is that uh, does that seem factual? Does that seem to be where the roadblock actually is?
it seems to because I'm doing the like release decision and being like, yeah, this is something that I want to release, but I'm not necessarily deciding where I want to release it and how. Just like, yeah, this is like something that I want the world to hear or some at some
Yeah. Right.
point.
Okay.
Some
So
fa-
just to clarify, this is when things are in done. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing the like wait 7 days and then decide.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, there is a difference in our world, in the automatic music machine world, between something being done and releasing it. We do actually get something to done, which we don't release, and that actually saves an enormous amount of time because you don't end up doing that. You know, that final 20% of the process takes 80% of the time. Sure. I mean, not always, but quite often. Yeah. So if you actually get things into done without doing that kind of like grindy bit at the end, which I actually find quite enjoyable as well. But it is still quite grindy, you know. It's
It's a great
slower
time.
going, yeah. So if you get, and then you only do that final 20% on a, it's actually a minority of the music if you're doing it properly. Then you actually save an enormous amount of time because people are just kind of blindly finishing everything and then not releasing it because it's not good enough. We'll make that decision earlier. So, um, what is it that is stopping you make a decision after that 7 days? Like where is the confusion?
I think it's less so it's like I decide I want to release it, and then I have to think, okay, um, am I going to send this to like Dean, or Well, I guess typically it's not even like a question of, because when it gets to that point, it's pretty obvious if it's going to be like a solo thing or a bells and robes thing. And then I guess the decision is like, okay, when do I start actually? Because I typically like reset everything for the mix down. And I'm wondering if I should start like cycling through like the mixing and being like, you know, within the done cycling, including mixing, like the mixing steps.
So let me just clarify something, because before we get to the actual nuts and bolts of what you're doing, when I asked you where the bottleneck was, there seemed to be a lack of clarity about well, it may not be. There seems to be a lack of clarity about the decisions that need to be made. So what the options are, and also, I mean, I don't know whether there is any resistance to making those decisions, because it's almost like upscale from resistance to making decisions is a clarity about what decisions need to be made. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's like you're going to feel resistance if you're unclear. It's just always, you know, the first thing to do if you're ever feeling resistance or procrastination is get clear on what the options are. You know, I talk to me, it's one of the questions I ask my children and my wife more than anything else when they go, oh, I don't know, and I'm like, so what are the options? Yeah, what is the decision that we're actually making here? Yeah, because often that will just, okay. So let me just share my screen, and you're gonna write this down here. Okay. So these are Luke's done decisions. Yeah. So it gets into done. Yeah. And then you wait 7 days before you listen. Yeah. So what is the first thing that you need to decide?
If I want to release it at all.
Okay.
If it's worthy of even considering a release for any.
Okay. So essentially, just for people who are wondering, essentially, what qualifies as something getting into done is that we when we're making it, we think we have enough. It's not that you make the decision to release it when it gets into done. It's, do I have enough information to make that decision in 7 days, essentially. Yeah. And sometimes you might be wrong about that, and sometimes you might be right about that, but you're separating the creation from the decision. Yeah, which is really, really, really important. It's that you're separating the editor from the creator, and you're not putting pressure on yourself to make a piece of music that you are going to release, because that just, particularly for solo producers or solo composers or solo musicians, that really does mess you up. So just that kind of so you just want to separate that. Yeah. So do I want to release this? So if it's a yes, obviously if it's a no, then it goes into, I'm just doing this for the benefit of the people who are watching, but you obviously know this. Yeah. So if it's a no, then it goes back into the sketchbook. Yeah. Obviously. So while I'm doing this, Luke, what if it's a yes? What is the next decision you want to make?
Probably if I want to send it to Dean, like if it's worthy of like a bells and robes release.
Okay. When you say worthy of a bells and robes release, can you be clear about
that? If it stylistically fits within the bells and robes world, and if it
okay. Right, so the first thing I need to know about, yeah, I'm using your words. So
great words.
It's okay. So does this stylistically fit in the bells and robes world? Now, I'm wondering, I've got a little coaching alarm bell going in my head. Is that a decision that you make, or is that a decision that you and Dean make?
It's definitely one we both make, but it's one that if, if I like came up with something that is like, you know, very blatant, like a country song or something, that to give an extreme example, I would be able to be like, no. But then, after kind of just getting that initial, it's almost like I'm not making a yes or a no at this point. I'm making a like it could, could this fit? And then it's getting sent to Dean.
Okay. Okay. So if it's a no, then what happens?
Does it fit into a potential solo project?
Okay.
Or is there a way another way I could release this, or could I send it to a collaborator?
Okay.
Maybe like what could be done with this? Where could it be released? Is that a better question?
Right. So what are the options there?
Like my project, like the vocal one, I may start one with like other stuff that I'm still kind of working out. That would be like, I don't know too much yet. Luke's solo non-vocal project.
Okay. No, I'll just use your words, right? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Where else?
Collaborators.
So collaborators aside from Dean,
Yeah, like other people.
because kind of Dean's got a special place, doesn't he? So.
Well, it could be like a vocal, like a rapper. I have some like rapper friends or like singing friends.
Okay. Are there any other options?
I'm sure there are.
You don't have to think of any, but I'm just wondering at this stage, is there, I mean, can you see from how you're having to think through this where the bottleneck is happening? Like it's that you're not clear on what the options are.
Yeah, yeah. It's just that I don't have this yes no mind map. It's kind of like these three questions are getting asked at the same time, and none of them are getting answered.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because this is like from the sounds of it, this is the first one that has to. It's like none of these are relevant. Cool. These ones aren't relevant. Where could this be released? Until that one's been answered, and you can't answer it, so you send it to Dean.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is really the bottleneck. Is that question was being asked, but wasn't being answered or anything done because I was kind of like cloudy as to what that question was, and if there was another question I think I needed to be asking.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, okay, this is very clear.
Yeah. So essentially, and the other thing that I heard when you were talking about these, because the question that you started here with was, does this fit into, yeah, not does this fit into, does this fit into, yeah. Now, and then what I heard when you started talking about all of these, and stop me if I'm wrong, is that you don't actually know what these are.
I think I know more about what the top one is.
So you know what
The
that one
solo.
is.
Hmm.
How would you describe that one?
It's more like 80s sort of poppy mixed with like synth wavy, danceable singing music.
Okay, what I would recommend that you do, and here's something for you to write down, Luke, is write down your elevator sentence. So one sentence, describe this. Yeah, not now, but afterwards. Yeah, come up with your. This is what this is.
Got it.
Okay, so come uh, create a one sentence stroke paragraph elevator. I don't want to call it a pitch, but I'm going to call it that anyway because that's, people know what I mean. But it's not that you're selling it to somebody or anything. It's just that you're describing it. So if you walked into an elevator, someone, and you had enough time that to go up a few floors, and you were like, oh hi, yeah, what do you do? Oh, I make music. Oh, what kind of music is it? What you'd say at that moment, yeah,
Right.
for, oops, to describe this project. Yeah. Because what will that help you? How will that help you in terms of this decision process?
Well, basically, I'll have that question: does this stylistically fit into Luke's solo vocal project? And I'll be able to answer that because I'll know what stylistically Luke's vocal project sounds like.
Yeah, because the question would be, is this, and then you could say the one-word sentence. Maybe not is this. You could even say, is this or could it be this? Because another feature of the machine is that we actually don't. Earlier on, and particularly earlier on in the machine, we don't really edit ourselves. We don't really kind of stop ourselves from going down a path. It's very kind of experimental and open. So we do end up making music that we're quite surprised to make at times. So quite often and done, when you kind of start practicing the machine, you get music in there and you're like, I made that. I didn't. Yeah. And sometimes that music can be just not relevant to the whatever project you're doing. Sometimes at all, and it would just be would make it into something else if you changed it.
Yeah,
Other times,
that's what I'm finding. Yeah.
yeah, but other times it can actually be, it can be not this, it can be not the thing that you've identified, but just a couple of tweaks or this and that, and you'd actually have, it's almost a new flavor of this sound or this style, or it's a great way of kind of increasing or sort of constantly developing your sound, because the more music that you are working with, the less important each individual track becomes, so the more free you are to experiment. But because we've got this done decision, and now we're clarifying for Luke what his actual decision process needs to look like, you can fashion tracks which aren't that thing into still sounding like you. So, I mean, the other thing that I would do, I mean, are you clear on this? You said this was the most clear. Are you clear on this?
Uh, it's coming together.
So
I'm just kind of like having some sounds that are happening. I'm like, I don't think that's bells and robes, but it's something, and I like it. And I don't know if I'm gonna like, it's just kind of like, it could be like a side project or something that would just, as I'm finishing this stuff, here you go.
so first of all, do you have enough time to be thinking about this, and this?
Um, Maybe, probably not, but I guess like I was kind of just the solo non-vocal, it may be something that I'm spending, like very little minimal time on. And it just, if it happens like over the, like it would almost be like the like the machine leftovers that I just like put up somewhere online and be like, hey, friends, you know, if you want to hear this.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be like I'm trying to like play shows or like market with it or like make it a thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, is it something? Because like so let me just give you an opinion here. Yeah. So if the solo, I mean, this sounds like the thing that is the most important of your solo stuff. Am I right in saying that? The stuff that you're doing without Dean, that's not quite solo stuff. The stuff that you're doing without Dean.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. At least for now, I want to try it because, you know, I've sang
Cool.
on a few tracks and I'm kind of just trying to see like, how I like doing this. And I've been taking vocal lessons for a while now. So yeah, right now it's kind of like something I want to think about, if you will.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool. So basically you're doing, it's absolutely fantastic because what you are doing is you're making the decision whether you want to do it by actually doing it, which is like always the best way to make you know a decision. It's like people. So again, my wife particularly gets frustrated with me because she thinks that I change my mind a lot, and I don't. I'm just making a decision by actually doing something. I'm going to do this, and then you do it, and you're like, I know, actually, I'm not going to do that because it's not the right thing to do. But I wouldn't know it unless I actually did it. Yeah. It's like
yeah.
sometimes you have to do the thing in order to know whether you do the thing. So could you set a certain amount of time in your mind where you are focused on this, and essentially these things, you just put them into the sketchbook?
Yeah. And so, okay. So one thing to add in there is what I've been, you know, so at the one thing that people might find interesting is the deadline idea. I basically set a very light, well, not light, I set a deadline for like 5 vocal tracks by September 1st, and then like 10 Bells and Robes tracks by that date. And just doing that right off the bat was like, okay, like schedules being made in my mind, like everything, you know, coming into place. I think that may have been another bottleneck, was that there wasn't deadlines.
Right. So you didn't actually have a deadline for the stuff that you were doing. It was like, again, this is another way of creating clarity. I've done exactly the same thing with my music. The end of July, I have to get, you know, at least an album's worth of material. I'm hoping, secretly, hoping for much more, not so secretly anymore. But by the end, you know, actually release by then. And that has just completely like zeroed me in. And the great thing about the automatic music machine is that you can use it in a deadline sense, and you can also use it in a not a deadline sense. But so when did you say for this solo vocal project? Sorry, how many pieces of music was it, and when was the deadline that you wanted?
Let me see, because I have it written down. I don't want to. It was by September 1st, 5 into release. And I think I set another deadline after that for when I'd like to actually release something. It's like July of next year. That might be too far off.
Yes. No, I don't think that counts as a deadline. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were a massive company with like teams of thousands of people, like hundreds of people, that would make sense. But for, you know, it's almost like, I think that for me, really, deadlines really come into play 3 months and under. I think that kind of makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anything beyond that is just plans for the future. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, 5 into release by September when?
1st.
Okay, so basically, in fact, that's probably less clear. I'm not going to do it like that. Okay. So this is your focus here. Yeah. Until then, what you're going to do, I mean, I suppose you could send the stuff to other collaborators, but what, I mean, do you want to send stuff to other collaborators right now before September 1st? Because really, we've got to focus on the priority. Yep. So you've got a priority over here, and you've got a priority over here. Yeah. And these are separate priorities because one involves somebody else and one involves yourself. But really, this is your solo priority. Yeah. And everything else is kind of a distraction. Really, that's a really good way of thinking about it. Yeah. So what I might suggest you do, and you don't have to follow this through, but if it was me, I would probably put these. Put that there. Yeah. And steady on. Right, there we go. And what I might do is, well, I definitely would do, is I would label them in Trello. Yeah. So it's not that you're putting them into the sketchbook and forgetting about them. Yeah. Because remember, what is the sketchbook not?
A bin.
The sketchbook is not a bin. So essentially, by labeling them, you are, I mean, you could even put a due date on them for for them to pop up as a new notification in Trello, not a notification on your phone. So the little bell comes up red. Yeah. Maybe a due date of September the 1st. Yeah. For you to actually listen to. I mean, do you have it set up? Do you have Butler set up in Trello so that it actually puts a listen label on cards on a certain date?
No. Well, I have Butler, but I don't have it set up for that.
Yeah, so look in the week 8 of the Leap where you'll see I share my Butler automations because it kind of automatically puts a purple listen card on labels after a certain amount of time. And you can actually, you could set that up. Another thing that you can do, all this is dangerous, is there's another power up in Trello, which is a little kind of other app that you add to it for added functionality called Card Snooze. So what you can do is it archives that card for a certain amount of time, and then it pops up back where it was whenever you say. So you could do that as well. Yeah. So essentially, you're not just the reason that I'm suggesting you do something like this, yeah, is that it will make it easier for you to do that because you're not putting it into the sketchbook where it might be lost. You're not thinking of it as a bin because it's going to come back and remind you that you want to check these things out, which will make it easier just to put them aside for now. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, totally.
So in terms of the bottleneck as you described it, how are you feeling about it now?
Oh, no, this feels great. I don't feel like it's there anymore.
Okay.
Well, I guess the one thing is the mixing.
Right. Yeah. So I was going to come to that. So essentially, what was interesting, and this is almost uniformly the case, is that you came into this session describing the bottleneck as a mixing bottleneck. Yeah, and this is what people do all the time. And it's not just mixing bottleneck, but in lots of different ways. They say, oh, it's this, or it's that, or it's the other. And then by having this coaching conversation, there was a higher order bunch of decisions not being made where the bottleneck existed first. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say there isn't. That was a double negative, wasn't it? But there still is a mixing bottleneck which we can address. And what I would suggest we do is that we stop this coaching session because otherwise this video is going to go on forever. Yeah. And then we do another coaching session where we actually address the mixing problem itself, the mixing bottleneck. But
yeah, and I don't even know if it's a problem or if it's just something I'm seeing like maybe I could cut some time.
I'm sure there is a lot of things that we can do by applying the principles of the automatic music machine, as we did here. There's a lot of things that we can do to optimize and improve the mixing process. But I think the important thing to take from this is often the bottlenecks that we're experiencing in our process are actually a function of the decisions we're not making outside of our process. Because can you just describe, I mean, you know, so now you have a clear map, and obviously I'll share this mind map with you, obviously, but now that you have a clear map of the decision that needs to be made at the end, how is that going to impact your mixing process? I mean, not the actual mixing process, but maybe what you mix and
Well,
how
I won't mix
quickly.
those things that are going directly to Sketchbook.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So so I should have not stopped the share. Is that the right one? Yeah. So before, Luke may well have been mixing these things, which we have now decided are not for mixing right now. So how much time, I mean, and he's now only going to be mixing, let's put this in here. Actually, let's put that here. So now he's only mixing these tracks. Yeah. How much time is that saving you, and how much quicker will this project get off the ground as a result?
A lot quicker. I almost want to change the the deadline.
Right. So let's do it.
Yeah, maybe 10.
Yes. Come on. So now we've gone from an EP to an album simply by being clear about where the priority is. Well, first, what decisions aren't being made, what the options are for those decisions, yeah, and what the priority is, and putting the stuff that isn't a priority to one side for a specific amount of time. So let's say, I'm just going to make this clear for you as well, September the 1st. Yeah. I mean, we've got to remember as music makers that the world doesn't know how much work we are doing. It only knows what we release. So this was something that I noticed time and again, was that I was like constantly working in the studio and things were going well for a while, and then things were going badly, and I was like, oh, it's going great, and everyone was like, is it? So where's the music? And nobody heard anything from me. So according to them, there was nothing happening. Yeah, whereas to me, I was like, you know, living this like roller coaster life. Like, you know, it's wonderful. Oh, I'm a genius. And oh no, I'm a fool. I'm terrible. I'll never make music again. You know, and essentially that was utterly irrelevant to everybody else. Now, that's not to say that releasing music is the most important thing or the only thing that we do, or there's no point in doing it unless we release it. That's absolutely not what I'm saying at all. However, in terms of our progress in the world, in the real world, in the external world, what we release has to have some kind of a priority. And the great thing about it is that it does actually give us an idea of what to do first. Because otherwise you could just end up going round and round and round in circles, not ever finishing anything, you know. And if that's what you want to do, then fine. But if you want to actually put your music into the world, then this is the way we've got to think about it. What's your priority in any given moment? So look, as a result of this conversation, what are you going to do? Like literally in the next 24 hours. Give me a quick.
I've been doing it. I have already started like taking stuff out of Done, putting it in the sketchbook, and then thinking about, because there were some for the solo vocal that I had put in the sketchbook, and now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move those back in and just like really get this, get this process working. Because the more I focus on that, with singing and just getting it going, well, now I'm off track, but yeah, basically just focus more on either the singing stuff or the bells and robes stuff, and really, narrow down a little bit, because it was, for a minute there. I feel like this happens to me. I go out, like I do this through June, and then like right at the end of June, I start coming back in. That seems to happen to me every year.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. Well, I mean, yeah, it's not a bad thing. There are periods of time, there are periods of time when we're in a more experimental wide-ranging phase, and then there are other periods of time when we're going, we're at the sharp end, and that's absolutely fine. But we want to make sure that we are aware of when that is happening and aware of what we need to do. We need to set an intention to it. If we've been too long at the sharp end, it can like tighten up your process. I mean, you can just like end up not experimenting enough and getting too careful and becoming very conservative creatively. Yeah, and so in terms of the machine, then what that means is you start focusing in splurge and discover, the first two columns of the machine. That's what you do, and you'll know that that's happening. So if you were to look at my machine right now, I'm fully at the sharp end. I've got a bunch in done, a few in draft, and basically nothing, not much. I mean, still splurging, but not much is going on in splurge and discover. Yeah, but I'm at the sharp end. But if I stay too long there, I'll just end up kind of boxing myself in creatively as a solo producer. This is, yeah,
right.
But similarly, if I spend too much time just in splurge and discover, I just end up going around in circles. I mean, that's what I have been doing over the last 6 months, or I think it's about 8 months actually now. It was just, I was just constantly like in this, anything's possible. Yeah, but the machine was showing it to me clearly, and because it was showing it to me clearly, I knew what I had to do, and it just became this point. I was like, I've just got to get some stuff done now. And so I ended up listening to a bunch of stuff that had been in the in progress section of the machine, and it came to like 85 tracks and 9 hours worth of music.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I've got to finish some of this now. But that never would have happened without the machine. Probably could have ended up in this kind of loop of never finishing anything for years, Okay, so Luke, are you feeling more clear now?
Yes.
Yes. Is there any questions you have about this kind of specific decision-making process that you need answered?
No.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, let's call that a wrap. And what we will do is we will do another one where we actually delve into the specifics of your mixing process. And obviously we can go into the technical stuff as well. Not that I'm going to be giving you a kind of mixing lesson or anything like that, but we will be actually talking about the various different processes you do. And if there's a way, well, I'm sure there is, we can find a way of actually optimizing how you're doing it so that you invest more of your time doing the really valuable things and less time kind of going around in circles. So thank you for this, Luke, and thank you for being so open, because I know that can be a little bit challenging to kind of share in public like that. So yeah, onwards and upwards.